Tactical dispositions. Sun Tzu said, "The best fighters of the past first make themselves unbeatable and then wait for the enemy to make a mistake, creating an opportunity for victory." The ability to defend against defeat is in our hands, but the chance to win comes from the enemy's mistakes. A good fighter ensures they cannot be defeated, but they cannot guarantee victory until the enemy provides that chance. Therefore, while victory can be anticipated, it cannot be forced. Defense is about making sure you cannot be defeated, while attacking is about trying to defeat the enemy. A good defense is secure and strong, while an attack is more challenging and risky. A skilled defender stays hidden deep underground, while a skilled attacker strikes from the highest point in the sky. This dual strategy of defense and attack allows a general to both protect themselves and achieve total victory. The true excellence in war is not about winning battles that everyone can see. A general who wins without the world knowing how or why has mastered the art of war. A skilled fighter does not seek fame for their wisdom or bravery. They win without mistakes and in a way that no one notices. Their victory comes from perfect strategy where they ensure their opponent is already defeated before the battle even starts. A victorious army is one that wins even before the battle begins, while a defeated army fights first and seeks victory only after. A good general follows principles, adheres to method, and maintains discipline, giving them the ability to control the outcome of the battle. There are 5 key elements to military strategy: measurement, estimation of quantity, calculation, balancing of chances, and victory. These elements build upon one another. Measurement leads to estimation, which leads to calculation, and so on until victory is achieved. A victorious army is as much stronger than a defeated one as a pound is heavier than a grain, and a powerful army floods the battlefield like water bursting from a dam. The Battle of the Granicus River, 134 BC. Alexander the Great. Background. In 334 BC, Alexander the Great faced the Persian forces at the Granicus River in Asia Minor. The Persian army was larger and well prepared, but Alexander, who had just begun his campaign to conquer the Persian Empire, had to secure an advantage before the battle began. He knew that merely relying on numerical superiority would not guarantee victory, so he focused on preparation, strategy, and using the enemy's weaknesses to his advantage. Strategic preparation. Before the battle, Alexander ensured his forces were positioned in a way that would give them the upper hand even before the fighting began. 1. Deception and tactical positioning. Alexander understood the importance of luring the Persian army into a vulnerable position. The Persian general Memnon of Rhodes had stationed his forces along the riverbank, thinking it would be a strong defensive position. However, Alexander's strategy involved using his cavalry and elite forces to feign a retreat, drawing the Persian forces into disarray. By baiting the Persians into advancing toward his apparent retreating forces, Alexander set the stage for a devastating counterattack. 2. Exploiting the terrain. The terrain was crucial to the battle's outcome. The Granicus River had natural features that Alexander used to his advantage. He placed his forces on higher ground and avoided direct confrontations in unfavorable terrain. The Persian forces were spread out across the riverbank, while Alexander concentrated his forces on the opposite side, where he had more control and better maneuverability. 3. Control of the battlefield. The key to Alexander's victory was his ability to control the flow of the battle. While the Persian forces appeared confident in their defensive position, Alexander carefully manipulated the battlefield. He waited for the right moment to strike when the Persians were spread out and vulnerable. His forces, particularly the Macedonian cavalry, were highly mobile and able to maneuver around the Persians, hitting them at weak points in their formation. Execution of the battle. When the battle began, Alexander's forces executed a swift and overwhelming assault. His cavalry, positioned on the flanks, launched a crushing attack on the Persian forces, cutting through their ranks and creating confusion. The Persian army, caught off guard and unable to reform their lines, was quickly overwhelmed. Alexander himself led the charge, personally engaging in the thick of the battle. His strategic placement of forces, along with the use of deception and terrain, ensured that his army maintained the advantage. The Persians were not only defeated but also forced to retreat, leaving their positions unprotected. Key takeaway: Alexander's victory at the Battle of the Granicus River demonstrates the principle that victory can be secured before the battle begins by ensuring superior positioning, exploiting the enemy's weaknesses, and controlling the battlefield. Alexander did not rely on chance or brute force alone. He created the conditions for victory by preparing his forces and the battlefield meticulously. Deception. He used the element of surprise and strategic feints to mislead the Persian forces, causing them to spread out and expose weaknesses. Control of terrain. By positioning his forces advantageously, Alexander ensured his forces could maneuver more freely, while the Persians were restricted by the river and their defensive positions. Concentration of force. When the time came, Alexander's army struck decisively and swiftly, exploiting the disarray within the Persian ranks. In this way, Alexander the Great ensured that by the time the battle started, his forces already held the advantage and the victory was all but assured. Strategic business competition. Background. In the early 2000s, Apple and Microsoft were two dominant forces in the tech industry, but they were positioned very differently. While Microsoft was focused on the software market with Windows and Office dominating the PC industry, Apple was transitioning into a more integrated hardware and software ecosystem with a new focus on design and user experience. By the time the rivalry heated up, Apple had already begun to carefully position itself for success. Strategic preparation and positioning. 1. Apple's focus on innovation and design. Apple knew that in order to outcompete Microsoft, it needed to differentiate itself. Instead of engaging in direct competition with Windows PCs, Apple invested in creating revolutionary new products with unique features. This was the foundation for the iPod, iPhone, and iPad. Apple's design philosophy: creating products that were user-friendly, aesthetically pleasing, and integrated with a smooth software experience, was part of its strategy to make itself unbeatable in the consumer electronics and mobile markets. Example: the release of the iPod 2001 and the iTunes Store 2003 didn't just enter the music market, it revolutionized it by offering a better user experience than existing MP3 players. Apple made sure it was well prepared to dominate a growing market, capturing consumer attention long before competitors had a chance to react. 2. Building the ecosystem and lock-in effect. Apple strategically positioned its ecosystem of hardware, software, and services in a way that made it very difficult for users to switch to competitors like Microsoft. By integrating the iPhone, iPad, iTunes, and the App Store, Apple created an interconnected ecosystem that encouraged consumers to stay within its world. This strategy ensured that Apple wasn't just competing with Microsoft on individual products, but was preparing to outlast them with a superior, seamless experience. Example: when Microsoft launched its Windows Phone, it entered the mobile market and tried to compete with Apple's iPhone, but Apple had already established a loyal customer base that was deeply integrated into its ecosystem, making it very difficult for Microsoft to lure users away. Number 3, focusing on the premium market. Apple understood that it couldn't win the same battle as Microsoft by focusing on cheap, low-margin products. Instead, it focused on creating high-quality, like premium products that consumers would be willing to pay a premium for. This differentiation allowed Apple to target a different demographic, one that valued aesthetics, ease of use, and status. Example: Apple's pricing strategy for the iPhone positioned it as a luxury product. While competitors like Samsung and other Android manufacturers competed on price, Apple created a sense of exclusivity, ensuring that their products were seen as more valuable, both in terms of features and brand prestige. Execution of strategy. 1. Timing the launch of key products. Apple's success wasn't just about having the best product. It was about knowing when to introduce innovations that would capture market interest. The launch of the iPhone 2007 is a prime example. At the time, smartphones were mostly clunky and difficult to use, dominated by companies like BlackBerry and Nokia. Apple, however, ensured that its phone was both innovative with a touch interface, internet browsing, and apps, and beautifully designed. 2. Seizing opportunities in the mobile and tablet markets. While Microsoft was focusing on improving its Windows OS, Apple was preparing for the next wave of computing, mobility. With the iPad 2010, Apple set a new standard for portable computing that would eventually shift the entire industry towards tablets and away from traditional PCs, areas where Microsoft had been dominant. Number three, responding to Microsoft's weaknesses. Microsoft's response to Apple's innovations was reactive rather than proactive. While Apple anticipated the rise of mobile computing, Microsoft was slow to adapt. The Zune, Microsoft's answer to the iPod, was a failure, and its Windows Phone didn't have the same appeal as the iPhone. Apple had already gained a massive lead in both the phone and tablet markets by the time Microsoft's products launched, making it difficult for Microsoft to catch up. Key takeaway: Apple's success in competing with Microsoft can be seen as a reflection of Sun Tzu's principle of ensuring victory before the battle begins. By preparing strategically, focusing on innovation, creating a loyal customer base, and differentiating itself with a premium product, Apple essentially made itself unbeatable before Microsoft could mount a serious challenge. By the time Microsoft tried to catch up, Apple had already established strong footholds in the key markets of smartphones, tablets, and digital media, leaving Microsoft to play catch up. Key insights and summary. Sun Tzu emphasizes that victory is achieved by first ensuring you cannot be defeated, and then waiting for the enemy to make a mistake. Defense is about protecting yourself, while attacking is about seizing the right moment to strike. The best generals win through perfect strategy, often without anyone knowing how. A good general prepares for victory before the battle even begins, following clear principles and maintaining discipline. Successful military strategy relies on five elements: measurement, estimation, calculation, balancing of chances, and victory. A victorious army is far stronger than a defeated one, much like a pound outweighs a grain.